We're going to open up the Bible. We think this book written 2,000 years ago isn't just to be put up on the shelf and collect dust, but this is a book that cuts to us. So what I want you to do right now is just prepare your hearts to hear from God. We're gonna close our eyes, we're gonna bow our heads just so we're free from distractions, and we're gonna pray, God, would you speak to me tonight? Maybe this week you need a special word from God. You need God to just come in and tell him in a special way, hey, I love you, I haven't left you. I promise, I'm with you. I know that life sucks right now. Or maybe Father's Day is just a dud for you, right? Maybe this is the first Father's Day that you've had since you lost your dad or something like that. Or maybe your dad has been estranged from you for a long time, and today is just kind of one of those downer days. You need a word from God. All right, so let's pray, anticipating God's going to talk to us. We're not just speaking into the telephone with nobody there. He's going to talk to us. Let's pray. God, speak, please. Speak in an awesome way. We came to hear you. We came to hear you because you're the remarkable part of this whole thing. Everything that we do. Nobody here, whether it be in leadership, somebody behind the drums or guitar, or me with the microphone, nobody here is remarkable. Nobody's the star. You're the star. And we came to hear from you. And I pray that you'd speak to us in an awesome way. And maybe there's some tender hearts out there right now who've never thought church was for them. And have said, you know what, I'm just going to give it a shot, whatever, I'm going to do it. God, I pray you speak to them in an awesome way. Or maybe those who have been to church for a long time, or maybe they've been hurt by a previous church, or whatever their situation is. Maybe they've been hurt by somebody at work or in the family, wherever they're at. God, I pray that you would speak in a new and a fresh way today. We're ready to hear from you. In your name I pray. Amen. Sweet. So dealing with transitions, dealing with moving from one guy to another is hard, like a leader, right? If you have a great, awesome leader, moving from them to the next guy is hard. I'll give you a perfect example. Phil Jackson, right? Phil Jackson is the greatest NBA coach ever, okay? And his greatest stint was not with the Bulls, okay? It was with the Lakers. One less championship, but still, we're better, okay? Anyways, my point is, Phil Jackson just dominant. Look what happens. He leaves the Bulls, then what's happened? Nothing. 2 torn ACLs. That's what's happened. You know what I mean? Sorry, D-Rose. I know all you D-Rose fans are like, oh, really, bro? Really? You're going to go like that? Yeah, I just went like that, okay? My Lakers are out of the playoffs, so I don't care, okay? My point is, Phil Jackson leaves Chicago, nothing's really happened, okay? Lakerland. What happens? We get the curse of 2 Mikes, right? We got Mike Brown and Mike D'Antoni. Again, what did we talk about last Sunday? Last Sunday we talked about what? What did the Lakers do? We let the enemy in the camp. Steve Nash got in. Then we took Steve Nash as coach, and we thought this was going to work out. Has he ever won a finals? No. The guy doesn't even coach defense. He doesn't understand what the other half of the court is. All he knows is the offensive side. Anyways, okay, I'm a little disgruntled, okay? But it's been Phil, Mike the Dud, and now, who's it going to be? I don't know. Kobe Bryant's going to be the coach. I don't know who's going to be the coach, but I know the next one is the great one. Okay, step back even further. Okay, now let's see. I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a huge USC fan. Okay, we had John McKay. Now, if you know, John McKay is like the greatest college football coach ever. Not Bear Bryant. He beat Bear Bryant. What? When Bear Bryant would only let the white boys play football, this is a true story. Watch it on 30 for 30. Bear Bryant would only let white guys play football. So what does John McKay do? John McKay rolls down to Alabama. And you know what he does? He's got a brother playing football. Like it should be, right? Spread the wealth. And what happens? We crush them. One of our pastors, might not know this, one of our pastors here, our men's pastor, Ron Gallagher, this guy played that game. Huge. He said that people were throwing rocks at their buses and whatever Alabama people do, throwing poop or whatever they do in that uncivilized part of the nation, right? And they just destroyed. But we had John McKay and it was awesome. But then he's gone and it was like nobody. And then nobody until we got Pete Carroll. Bam, bam. Pete Carroll was awesome. But it took 5 coaches from John McKay to Pete Carroll, 5 coaches. From Phil Jackson to another great coach, hopefully only 2. But it's hard to be the next guy, because what do you do? I mean, think about it. Think about if you got the Laker call, which I got when Phil was gone. They said, Paul, we know you know a lot about basketball. Can you help us out? I said, you know what? I can play NBA Jam, and that's pretty much it, okay? That's all I got. Sorry, I'm going to have to decline. I love Jesus, right? But it's hard. I mean, imagine if you got the gig after Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson, 11 titles. Wow. And then you're like, okay, you're the next guy. What do you do? I mean, do you just start all over? You're like, I'm going to spin it off. The triangle, we're going to run the octagon. There's not even that many players on the field. We're running the octagon offense, right? Like, how does that work? Okay, or maybe you just say, you know what? I'm going to continue on. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ride the momentum of the past and try to continue on. It's really hard. Well, see, we're at that point in the Bible. Now, we've been going through the Bible 31 weeks. We're going to go through the entire story of the Bible. And right now, we've got a guy who's basically like Phil Jackson, John McKay. His name was Moses. And Moses was an awesome guy, an awesome leader. Because God, way back here, created creation. It was all good, but then it fell. And God decided to launch a rescue plan. That even though we caused the problem, God was going to be the solution. And part of that solution was building a nation, a great nation. But this nation needed a leader. So he made that leader Moses. And then they needed a land. And Moses brought them all the way up to the land. And that's where we're at right now. But now Moses dies before they ever get the land. Moses dies before they ever cash in on this 650-year-old promise. So the next guy comes up. His name is Joshua. And that's where we're at. Now think of the pressure that Joshua had. I mean, Moses would go before Pharaoh, speak as the voice of God, and he would just slap that dude around. Seriously. Now, not literally. But he would go in there and say, you need to let these people go. Moses, being a fugitive, one that couldn't speak very well, went to the world power, the leader of the greatest nation at that time, went up there and said, you need to let your workforce go. Let all your slaves go. And Pharaoh looked at him like, what? And then he would perform these miracles. God would use Moses in an awesome way. 10 plagues. He just destroyed that nation. And Joshua saw all these plagues. He saw the parting of the Red Sea. He saw all these miraculous things. And now Joshua has this mantle to kind of take on. And you got to think, there's a ton of pressure. So God comes down in an awesome way to Joshua and says, let me tell you what the next plan is. Let me come down. It'd be like Mitch Kupchak, general manager of the Lakers. Comes down, yeah, I know this stuff. Comes down, yeah, I'm a Laker fan. Comes down to the next coach and says, let me tell you what the expectations are. So God comes down to Joshua and says, here's what we're going to do. Before he ever talks to him about what the key to his success is, he tells you, let me tell you the game plan. Like Mitch Kupchak could go down to a new coach, and we're going to run the triangle offense. We're going to do what has won us 5 championships. That's what we're going to do. We're going to run that. So God comes down and let me tell you the game plan. This is what happens. Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. This is God's game plan. God's game plan. He's saying this is what's going to happen. Joshua chapter 1, this is verse 1. After the death of Joshua, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, that means his dad's name was Nun, not that he didn't have any parents, Moses' assistant, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore go arise and go over the Jordan. Now here's another problem. The Jordan is a giant river. And Joshua doesn't have boats, but he's got like 1 million plus people. He's like, all right, we're swimming. Get your floaties on. We're all jumping in. No, God does another miraculous thing. Just like he parted the Red Sea, he would part the Jordan too. So another miracle, Joshua gets to be a part of that one. He says, go over the Jordan, you and all this people, into the land that I am giving you, to the people of Israel. Awesome. Right? Okay, so time to perform a miracle, go across the water, do my thing, and then I'm going to go into some land. It's going to be awesome. We're going to start saying, hey, you get this spot, you get this spot, you get this spot. It's like the Wild West, right? It's you just go out there and just pick some land. You just run and you put your stake down. Bam! Like when the United States went to Mars, we went up there and we stuck a flag there because ain't nobody living on Mars, I don't think. Or Mars. Moon. I'm an idiot. We didn't plant a flag. We sent a robot. That's why I'm a pastor and not a history teacher. Okay? The point is, you would stick your flag, bam, and that would mark your territory, right? So that's basically what he's saying they're going to do. But they run into a small problem. Check this out. It says, every place that the sole of your feet will tread upon I have given to you, just as I have promised you, or just as I have promised Moses. For the wilderness, that is all the way that you can see Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites. Wait, what? Now the Hittites, that's not a mountain range. The Hittites are people. So wait, now we got a problem. This isn't like Mars or like the moon. There's people up there. Now, so he's saying, you're going to cross this giant river, and then I'm going to give you a land. But the problem is, there's people in this land. This is what he keeps saying. To the Hittites of the great sea towards going down from the sun will be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you. All the days of your life, just as with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. What's the game plan? The game plan is to take the land. But the problem is somebody's already there. Now, this is kind of a big problem in the Bible. I mean, let's just think about this for a second. Maybe you've been a Christian for a ton of time and you just believe everything in the Bible. You just think it's all easy and it's all just flows smoothly. Or maybe you're skeptical and you're like, yeah, there is a problem here, Paul. Because it's those people's land. Isn't this what happened with the English and the Spanish when they just jumped over here and said, hey, Native Americans, get out of here? Like, that's wrong, right? I mean, it's kind of too late now, or we're here, right? I'm not saying I could do anything about it. But back then, that's wrong, right? I mean, watch the movie Pocahontas. She could paint with all the colors of the wind. You know what I mean? Like, why shoot her? She's cool. You know what I mean? Don't give her smallpox. Like, let her paint with the colors of the wind, or whatever it was, okay? But there's a problem there. So God is basically saying, hey, man, it'd be like this. It'd be like God comes to me and says, hey, Pastor Paul. And I said, hey, that's weird you call me pastor, but that's cool, right? What's up? Hey, I want you to drive real quick. Okay, so I drive and I go to Anaheim Hills. What? Right? And I drive up to this fat house, 4,000 square feet. I mean, awesome. Like, awesome pad, right? And God goes, that's yours. I'm like, sweet. He's like, just go in. I'm like, all right. I bounce in there. There's a family in there. I'm, are you the maids? Like, what's going on? And then God tells me, no, kick these fools out. Wait, hold up. What? How is this supposed to work? That's what's going on. We have a huge problem. How is it fair that God takes something away, right? I teach my kids this. I got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, which means they fight all the time. Okay, all the time. And the rules of playing with toys, the rules of sharing is you don't take a toy. I make it simple for the kids. The rules of sharing, you never take a toy. Isn't God taking a toy here? Aren't the people of Israel just kind of like, nah, it's mine? What? That's not fair. You can't do that. There's 2 reasons in the Bible where God explains what's going on here. The first thing is, this is not their land to begin with. The people who have it right now, it's not theirs to begin with. It's actually God's. And the reason they're losing it is because of their sin. Check this out. This is Deuteronomy chapter 9, verse 4. It says, do not say in your heart, this is Moses before he dies. He tells the people just to remind them, after the Lord your God has thrust them out before you, these are the people with the land. It is because of my righteousness that the Lord has brought me to possess this land. And Moses saying that's not true. Where it is just because of the wickedness of those nations that the Lord is driving them out. You see, 600 years before this point, I mean, go all the way back, just rewind the tape. If you go all the way back to the time of Abraham, when God first said, this is my rescue plan, to use you to build a nation, that Jesus Christ would eventually come down this line. When he comes with him, he says, this land I'm going to give you. Abraham at that time only owned a gravesite, a tomb in the land. So God came up to him and said, I'm going to give you all of this, and all he ever got before he died was a tomb. That's it. But he said, I'm going to give this to you, but there's a problem. And this is what he says all the way back in Genesis 15. He says, but I will bring judgment on the nation that they will serve. He's talking about Egypt at this point. He says, I'm going to judge them with the 10 plagues like we know. Afterwards, they will come. This is the people of Israel. This is Abraham's people, God's people. And afterward, they will come out with the great possessions. As for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. Basically saying, Abraham, you're going to die before you see any of this happen. You shall be buried in a good old age, and they shall come back here in the 4th generation, for the iniquity or sin of the Amorites is not yet complete. What was God basically saying? God was saying, these people have the land right now, Abraham, but they're doing some things that are wrong. And there's a point where they'll build and a build and a build and a build and a build, and daddy's temper is just enough. They've done enough wrong, and then I say, no more. The reason they lost their land was because of sin, because they were doing awful things. This is what they were doing. This is what they did. It says, the Lord hates, this is in Deuteronomy chapter 12, the Lord hates what they have done for their gods. For even they burn their sons and their daughters in fire to their gods. They would go to a worship service kind of like this, and they would have an altar right here. And instead of burning sacrifices like animals, like we know people back then did, they would take their children. It'd be like you going in, and children's ministry wasn't a building over there. It was an altar right here. And you would take your little 2-year-old, or you take your little child, and you would put them on there, and they would burn them alive, and they would worship their gods. Now you don't have sympathy for him anymore. Now you're not like, no, that's not fair. Give him that back. God is saying basically this. You go back to my son. It'd be like if I went to my son and I said, you know what, Paxton, here's a toy hammer. Play with it. And this is how it works. You can hit the little wood stuff, right? That's part of your toys. But do not hit your sister. Here's the toy hammer. Do not hit your sister. And then he hits his sister. Bam! Right in the eye. Gives her a big old shiner. Now, if I run up to Paxton and I grab the hammer, is it fair for Paxton to say, no, mine? That's how my son talks, in that deep of a voice. It's very scary. And he's got hair. It's gross, okay? He's a man-child. Back hair, too. I'm just kidding, right? But is it fair that he grabs the hammer and says, no, Daddy, that's mine? No. Paxton, you didn't use what I gave you right. That was a gift. My kids know this. All the toys are Daddy's toys. Daddy just lets you play with them. If you don't play with them nice, peace out, right? Toys are going in the trash. They're all gone. This is what God's saying. God is saying, I gave this land to these people. But now what they're doing is when they have a worship service, they don't worship me. They worship another God, and they take their children and they kill these children in a terrible way to serve a God that's not even real. So I'm done with them. You're going to wipe them out. I've had enough is enough. They're done. So that is what the game plan is. But the question is, now he knows what to execute. Now he knows his job is to take this land. But what is he supposed to focus on? I mean, what is he supposed to do? He knows the objective, take the land. But what's the key to his success? How does he know he'll endure? How does he know he'll make it? How does he know he'll beat all these armies? Joshua isn't Moses. He doesn't have the cool staff that does all the magic tricks. He doesn't have that. So I'm assuming that Joshua this time is probably scared. He doesn't know what to do. So God talks to him again. He says, let me tell you what your success will be determined on. This is in Joshua chapter 1 again in verse 6. Just listen to what God says. This is what I want your focus to be. It says, be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous. Be careful to do according to all the law that Moses, my servant, commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. For I have commanded you to be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you. What does God say? God sits down, kind of like Mitch Kupchak with a new coach, and he says, listen, obey. Obey, 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 and then get out of my way. That's what he says. You're going to take this land. He gives them like this grandeur of a dream. That all this land, if you look at the very beginning, he says, as far as the sun sets. I mean, imagine just going out. This is one of the coolest things I like about the ocean, is stepping on the beach and having a sunset and seeing, thinking about how far can my eye reach? When the curvature of the earth just kind of drops off for me from my eyesight, how far is that? That's miles and miles and miles. And he's saying, you can't even see the boundary of the land that I'm going to give you. This promise, 600 years old, I'm going to give you. All of this land, everywhere you put your foot, man, you're going to win. And what God does not do is say, let me give you the military strategy. Let me give you the playbook. He just tells them, you're going to take this land, and what I want you to do is obey. Just obey, obey, and get the heck out of my way. Because the real warrior in this story is God. It's not Joshua. It's not the strength of Joshua. It's not the sharpness of his sword, the quickness of his feet, or his aim with an arrow. It's about God, and God says, just obey and get out of my way and watch me do my work. The first example of this is in Jericho. Jericho is this huge city, mighty city. It had this big wall. The first thing I think of is like the men of Troy, right? Where they have the giant wall. This wall was like 15 feet high in one section. And then on top of that was like another 20 feet. This thing was 35 feet tall. That's like 3 stories tall. And in the ancient Near East, that's a big wall. They didn't have planes to drop bombs. All they had was spears and like arrows. Maybe a catapult. I don't know. I don't know the history of war, okay? But I know they didn't have airplanes to drop bombs. So this wall was strong. I mean, this wall kept it so fortified. And the walls were 6 feet thick. Basically, Matthias laying down was a wall. I mean, it's this huge, massive thing. And nobody could beat this city because the wall was so big. You would run up to the thing, and if you tried to knock it down, they would just be shooting you from the top, and you'd be game over. It would take like 30 archers to beat an army of 100 or 300. It'd be easy. It's game over. So this is what God does, and I think God has a sense of humor. Because God rushes down again with Joshua and says, this is what I want you to do. I want you to obey. Just obey, and then get out of my way. And he runs down, and this is what happens. This is literally what happens in the Bible. He says, let's go over this. You see Jericho, all these mighty walls? Oh man, it's so big. I want to discuss with you, and I can almost see like Joshua right here, God right here. And if you know, like in those old movies, whether it be like a Gladiator or something like that, they always have the military commanders together, and they've always got these little small figurines that represent different fronts and stuff like that. I feel like God is sitting with him, and like there's Jericho right there, molded out of mud or something like that. He's got these giant walls, and he says, all right, this is what I want you to do. And Joshua's like, okay, so you want me to flank them, shoot my arrows this way, right? What do you want me to do? And God says, okay, let's discuss the parade route. And I feel like Joshua's like, parade? Hold up, what? You're like a float? This is what God does. God says, let's discuss the parade route. He comes down and is like, we're going to build a float. He doesn't say that. But he says, let's discuss the parade route. I don't want you to be concerned about military strategy, about flanking or anything. This is a terrible, if you read The Art of War, this book right here, Joshua, when they deal with Jericho, is the stupidest way to ever attack a city. It's true. This is what they do. God comes down and says, this is how it's going to work. You see the giant city? It's big. Oh yeah, it's big. I want you just to run around it. Just do a little jog. You know what I mean? Get your little pedometer out, see how many steps it is. And then what I want you to do is I want you to take the priests. Now, you know this. I know I look like a very able-bodied man, very strong. Looks are deceiving. I don't have much muscle on me. If somebody's attacking us, do you want me in the foxhole with you? Heck no, right? You want somebody big who can shoot. Like I was good at duck hunt. That's all I got. So if there is like an electronic bird attacking America, call me up. But if it's a real person with real bullets, I'm the dude in like Saving Private Ryan that's like crying, holding the bullets. That's me. I'm that guy. Okay? If you need somebody to pray for you, give you premarital counseling, I'm your man. If you need somebody to translate the Bible, I'm your dude. If you need somebody to take somebody out, it's not me. I'm not your guy. I'm not Captain America. Okay? I'm Captain Chess Club. That's who I am. Okay? I know my role. I know my point. But God decides, these are the guys I'm going to put in the front line. It'd be like God coming down and like, okay, Joshua, what I want you to do is find Pastor Paul, and I want you to just march him around the city. Like, that's intimidating. That's what he says. Take the priests. He takes the priests, and then he gives them trumpets, which is not a military weapon. They take these trumpets, and their job is to blow them continually. That's it. Go around the city. It's like the World Cup last year with the vuvuzelas. That's all you heard. You couldn't hear an announcement. You couldn't hear a goal. It was just like you're watching the game. The whole time. You're like, it was so annoying. That's what's going on. Maybe that's their strategy. Annoy them with a vuvuzela, and then they'll just give up. They don't even care. That's what they do. They parade around this whole city. And then the next day, they do the same thing. And the next day, it's for 6 days. Vuvuzela. The whole time. This is dumb. First of all, he says, take all the mighty men to do this. So now Jericho is sitting there, and even if they can't count, they've seen 6 times how many people you have. And they're not attacking the wall, they're just walking. He doesn't even say that their armor is out. Or what they have, their weapons are out. They're probably just sheathed, just sitting there. And they're just walking, listening to the trumpets. The jazz band that's going before them, right? They're just walking around, that's what they're doing, over and over again. And then God says, this is what I want you to do. We're doing a massive parade the 7th day. We're going to go around this city, not just once, not just twice. We're going to go around this thing a bunch of times. And then when the last trumpet blasts, now I don't know if the guy hit a solo or something like that, but they say it's going to blast, and I want everybody to throw their spears or to punch the wall. No, he says shout. Shh. Like, what's that going to do? It's a 6-foot thick wall, okay? My son sometimes gets these, like, crazy times where you tell him to do something, he doesn't want to do it, and he just runs, and he, like, yells at something, like he's going to knock the wall over or something. He's, ah! Right? I'm like, what is wrong with you, Hulk? This is what they're doing. They're basically going to walk around, blow a trumpet, stare at the wall, and just, ah! Ah! That's what their job was. That's it. That's it. Stare at the wall, yell at it. Go. This is the worst plan ever. Don't ever do this. This is dumb. Don't go around anywhere, and whoever we're fighting, don't just scream at him. I mean, if somebody was charging me and I just went, ah! Ah! They would shoot me. I'd be dead. But that's what they do. They yell. And what happens? Boom! The walls come down. And then the military's like, sweet. They get their swords. Boom. They destroy Jericho. Bam, they're done. And the word goes out. Jericho was a big deal. Throughout the whole Bible, we see several times Jericho being mentioned. Egypt is mentioned because God miraculously destroyed them, but so also Jericho. I mean, God just destroys. But what's the point? What did he tell Joshua? Obey and get out of my way. Obey and get out of my way. Just do what I tell you to do and watch me flex. Watch me do my thing. This is a theme throughout the book of Joshua. I'll show you verses. God always says the role of warrior is on me, not you, Joshua. The role of warrior is on me. This is Joshua chapter 6, verse 2. He says this, and the Lord said to Joshua, so I have given you Jericho into your hand, its kings and its mighty men. Who gave Jericho over? God did. They go to another battle. These are two verses about Gilgal, a mighty city. And God says this, the Lord said to Joshua, this is Joshua chapter 10, verse 8. He says, do not fear them, for I have given them into your hands. Not a man of them shall stand before you. Again, he talks about this mighty city, Gilgal. And in chapter 10, he says, and as they fled before Israel, this is an awesome verse. They were going down in the ascent of Beth Horon, and the Lord threw down large stones from heaven. In the very end of the verse it says, more people died because of the hailstones than the sons of Israel killed by a sword. So God comes in, and they're chasing these dudes from Gilgal. They're running them down, and God decides to send hail. Hail so big it can kill a grown man. That's big. That's like God's throwing basketballs. This is God's idea of dodgeball. And nobody can move, duck, dive, dip, or dodge. Everybody's just getting crushed. And it says more people fell because of what God did from heaven than what Israel did. And what's the point there? As Israel is chasing these guys down, they see an act of God, and it wipes these people out. What is God saying? Get out of my way. Just get out of my way. Watch me do what I do. One of the biggest battles of Joshua is in chapter 11. This is the northern Canaanites came in, and basically all the kings have heard what happened with Jericho, this mighty city that fell. And all these kings got together and said, we got to do something. We got to rally together. You got to get your people. I'll get your people. We'll all get together, and then we'll win. And this is what God says about these people. It says, the Lord said to Joshua, this is chapter 11, verse 6, do not be afraid of them, for tomorrow at this time, I will give them over, all of them, slain to Israel. And you shall hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire. Who's the warrior? God. Joshua's job is just to obey. But the worst military failure in the book of Joshua is the smallest opponent. The smallest one. See, right after they take down Jericho, the big one, right? These massive 3-story walls, 6 feet thick, and they yell and scream and blow trumpets, and God destroys. At that time, God said, when you take in this city, I want this city to be special, and so I don't want you to touch anything. Nothing's going to be yours. You're not going to get any of the plunder of this land. It's all devoted to me. But there's one man, Achan is his name. And he sees something shining. Maybe it's like Aladdin, right? And he touches the ruby or whatever instead of getting the lamp. I don't know. But something happens where this guy sees something shiny and thinks, I have to have this. So he takes it, and it's something small, something so small that he can hide it. And he takes it. And the next battle is a city called Ai, or A. And so Joshua sends out these spies, and he says, just check out this little town. I want to see what they're about. God says, this is the next one on the map. It says, Joshua sent out these spies. This is Joshua chapter 7, verse 3. And it says, and they returned, and Joshua said to him, do not have all the people go up, but let about maybe 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and attack. Do not make the whole people toil up there, for they are few. Man, these people are small. This is easy. We just destroyed Jericho. It'd be like we just beat the Miami Heat, And then we go down and play Cypress High School, right? Basketball team. Like, I just took down the champs, and now I got to play with the chumps, right? That's basically what they're saying. That's the contrast. So they go down there to the city small, and they take a small army, only a small branch. Remember, there's like millions of these people. It's just take a couple thousand. They go down there, and they get their butt kicked. And Joshua's like, wait a second, did you guys do the parade route right? Did you do the trumpets right? Did everybody walk around? What happened? And this is what God says. God says that you have broken faith in regard to these devoted things. One person sinned. What was the point? What was the point that God sat down with Joshua? What did he tell him the key to his success was? Obey, obey, just obey, and then get out of my way. One act of disobedience ruined the whole battle. One act of disobedience ruined the whole battle, and they failed. And even though they can destroy a great city, this little petty one does nothing. And God warned about this. God told them right before they took this land, before they took Jericho, he said, do not touch these things. Listen to my voice. And they decided to disobey, so they failed. You see, in the Christian life, the only time that you fail is when you disobey. You do not fail when you obey, ever. Ever. Now let's get really practical. What does that mean for your job? If I said, when you obey, you never fail. When you disobey is the only time that you truly fail. What about your job? What about when your job requires you to do something that you know is not right? Whether it be to lie, or whether it be to hurt somebody else, or whether it be to snitch on somebody else at the job and say, oh, they didn't. You got to find somebody to blame the problem on when really the ownership is on you, but maybe partially is on them. And so you tell your boss it was them. They did it. Because at that moment you're thinking, if I lose my job, I fail. Wrong. If you disobey, you fail. And so there are times in your job where you will lose your job because of your Christian character. You will lose your job because you obeyed God. That is not a failure. Now in relationships, this is true too. All the time, this happens all the time. I've seen this a million times. There's one main truth to dating, or to just that whole relationship, that whole whatever you want to call it. I have seen it a million times with students and with young adults. These two people who think, okay, maybe we're compatible, maybe we match, he likes what I like, and they start to fall in love, right? Or they get to that point. And what happens, and I've seen this before, is guys will trade love for sex and girls will trade sex for love. Guys will trade love for sex and girls will trade sex for love. What do I mean by that? Guys will say, I love you, so you'll sleep with them. Girls will have sex with you, so you'll tell them that you love them. That's the exchange that happens. And there might be a relationship that you're in right now, and you feel that pressure. You feel that pressure to do something you know is not right. And that other person is pressuring you. And if I came in and we started talking, you say, but Paul, you don't understand this. He's a good guy. He loves Jesus. Then he's a part of the band. Or he's on leadership. Or whatever. You give me whatever excuse you give me. Whatever resume you want to put on there. And you say, but this and this and this. But he says, if I don't do this, I feel like I'll lose the relationship. Then lose it. Because you think that losing this is failure. It's not. Disobedience is failure. Disobedience is failure. You cross that line morally, that's the failure. You may keep that relationship, but you failed. You failed. You did exactly what happened here. Or maybe it's a rumor. Maybe something is going around. Maybe it's here, or maybe it's your school or workplace or something like that. And there's a rumor going around and you're so paranoid about it that people think that you're this type of person when you're not that person, and it's untrue. I hear that. But you want to fight for yourself. You want to fight for your name. So every time you hear it, you go up and you confront that person. You tell them, that's not right. That's not true. That's not who I am. And you're just paranoid about all these people, what they think of you. That is not your concern. Obedience is your concern. Obey and get out of the way. Obey and get out of the way. Let God fight for your reputation. Let God fight for your relationship. Let God fight for your job. When you disobey, it's the only time in your life that you fail. Obedience will cost you. I guarantee it. There will be a time where you lose out, but you're not a loser. There will be a time where you lose out, but you're not a loser. You may lose him. You may lose her. You may lose that promotion. You may lose a piece of your reputation. But if you obey, you'll never fail. If you obey, you will never fail.